Hello, hello, hello. This is Katie Kimberling with WRYLA, and I am here with our lovely, unofficial but really official Rotary historian, Grover Ozmun, to learn a little bit about the history of Rotary. Grover, how are you doing today?
Good and great. I tell you, these kids, they look great, by the way. You got a great bunch of kids here.
I think so.
Normally, I'm in front of you personally, but this year we're going to do it a little different, right?
We're going to do it a little different.
Okay.
We are. And Grover has been doing this for a long time, and he can do this in his sleep. But he's going to give us the history and the lowdown of Rotary so you guys can go home and tell everybody what Rotary Camp and Rotary is all about.
You know, that's the first thing I'm thinking about, Katie. When they go home, somebody's going to say, where you been all week? And they're going to say, I've been to Rotary Camp. And they're going to say, well, what's Rotary?
What's Rotary?
And you're going to say it's a club in my hometown. No, it's a club in your hometown, but it's a lot more than that. And I want to explain to you what a great organization you're going to be a part of all week long.
I agree. It is a great organization. I joined Rotary in August of 2017 and wish that I had done it in 2007 or 1997 when I was younger. But the 4 years that I've been in have just really been magical and changed my life. It's a phenomenal organization. Tell me how it started.
Well, Rotary actually began in Chicago, Illinois, 7 p.m., February 23rd, 1905. 4 men got together at the 7th floor of the Unity Building to talk about the formation of a new club. The man who had the idea for a new club was named Paul Harris, who was generally considered the founder of Rotary. He was 34 years old at the time, and he wanted to share his ideas with some of his friends. He and his best friend, Sylvester Shealy, had gone downstairs and had dinner that night together. And when they came up to the 7th floor and got off the elevator, they were laughing and having a good time. And the two other guys sitting in the room said, well, where y'all been? What's so exciting? And they said, well, we had dinner together downstairs. We know it was Madame Golly's Italian restaurant.
Do you know what they ate?
Well, probably pizza or spaghetti. I don't know.
Probably pizza or spaghetti.
But the other two guys will say, why didn't you invite us? And Paul said, you know what? The next time we have a meeting, let's build it around a meal.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, Katie, in 1905, that's the start of the Civic Club luncheon or breakfast or dinner that goes on all over America today, started by Rotary there in 1905. At the second meeting, they decided to meet again, and that tradition has held. The Unity Building is in Chicago has since been destroyed.
Okay.
But right up the road north of Chicago is Evanston, Illinois, where Northwestern University is.
Yes.
And that's where the international headquarters of Rotary is today.
Oh.
And if you go to the international headquarters and go inside, they have developed a room just like the room the first night the Rotary was held.
Oh,
wouldn't that be fun to go see?
It would.
Yeah, exactly. Gus Lohr's office right there in the international headquarters. From an ethics standpoint, we had a German, a Swede, an Englishman, and an Irishman. And from a religious point of view, we had a Roman Catholic, a Jewish founder, and two Protestants. So from the very beginning, Rotary was a balanced organization. And we're going to talk a little bit more balance here in a minute. But anyway, Paul shared his ideas with his 3 friends, and they called for another meeting to be held 2 weeks later, March the 9th. I've always said the first week of March 1905 was the first time there wasn't a Rotary meeting going on somewhere in the world. Since then, Rotary's been going on. At the second meeting, which was held in Paul's office, 3 things actually occurred at that second meeting. They named it Rotary.
Okay.
And the reason they named it Rotary was because each member was going to rotate, taking turns, being in charge of the meetings.
Okay, so would they host it and would they plan the agenda?
They would plan the meeting.
All right.
Our Rotary Club still goes out to another business in town once a quarter.
That's right.
Just in memory of the fact that that's how Rotary got started, was rotating meeting sites.
Those are our vocational tours.
That's our vocational tours, right. They named it Rotary, and then they elected Sylvester Shealy, who's Paul's best friend, as the first president. And Paul and Sylvester are going to live next door to Chicago, in the South Chicago neighborhood for the next 30 years. Neighbors, side by side, two of the founders of Rotary. And today they're buried side by side in South Chicago.
Well, I hope they're still getting along.
Well, two of the best friends, two of the founders of Rotary. Anyway, so next thing they did was bring in a new member.
At the second meeting. We're still at the second meeting?
Yeah, at the second meeting. And the reason they brought in a new member was to give them more membership, but also that habit still goes on today. We're looking for new members all the time in our club, aren't we?
We sure are.
And anyway, the first member they brought in was a man named Harry Ruggles. Harry was a printer in downtown Chicago, and he was going to be a very famous Rotarian for the next 20 years. He'll be president of the club and hold all the offices, very well thought of. But the most important thing that Harry did was start Rotary singing.
And we sing just to this day. In fact, Bob, why don't you lead us in a song?
And I'm going to tell you what that song is, Bob, before we get started, because the first song was the #1 hit on the jukebox in 1905. But we still sing it today, and all of you who are here today can join in. Let's sing "You Are My Sunshine." Okay, we're ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks for doing that, Bob. You guys sounded great.
Next, we'll sing Metallica.
At the end of that first year, 1905, Rotary had 30 members. And then they started to expand. Now you need to be looking at your list here, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of things that are on your list. 1907, the second Rotary Club was opened in San Francisco. Paul had friends on the West Coast. I won't get into all that, but Rotary spread over the West Coast in a hurry, all the way from Seattle down to San Diego. California came into Rotary at the very early days.
I think that's kind of unusual that it jumped from Chicago all the way to San Francisco instead of spreading out in that Chicago area.
I think he had some friends out there and he spread his idea to the West Coast and it took off.
And then those wacky Californians just took it and ran with it.
I guess. By 1911, there are 16 Rotary clubs in the world, and we've crossed the Canadian border. The first club outside the continental United States, Winnipeg, Canada. That's a good question to ask at a meeting sometime. Where was the first meeting? Where was the first club outside the continental United States? 1912, we crossed the Atlantic and opened up Rotary in England and Scotland.
Both at the same time,
well,
or close enough to call it a tie?
Yeah. And the English are a little different than the Americans.
Yes.
You notice that? Mm-hmm. Most of their clubs are about 30 members. And they're in every little suburb of the community, and they're usually held in the evening, and they drink until midnight.
Oh, don't they usually meet in a pub?
In a pub, yeah, absolutely. And the English claim to be very early members of Rotary because Paul's wife was from Scotland. I won't get into that story today, but we have a Scot as the wife of our first president. Anyway, by 1913, there are 50 Rotary clubs in the world, and guess what? Oklahoma City has come into the meeting site. Oklahoma City, downtown Oklahoma City, came in as Club 29.
So does that mean it was the 29th Rotary Club?
29th Rotary Club. So Rotary's been in Oklahoma for a long time. Yes, by 1917, Rotary had come to our district, which is southwestern Oklahoma, where most of you members are from. The first club to open in our district was Shawnee. Are there Shawnee people out there? You got Shawnee people this year?
I think we might have some Shawnee people.
Number 2 online was Ardmore.
Stand up and sing us a song.
Ardmore's number 2. I think we got a Rotary Club in Hobart now again, and I think Hobart was number 3.
We have some Hobartians with us.
Oh, well, good. Welcome. You all were part of the early part of Oklahoma being part of Rotary. Rotary came to Norman in 1919 with the Downtown Club. So Rotary's been in my hometown for a long time.
Grover, do you know what number club that was in Norman?
I don't know that I've ever been told. I'll have to look that up.
I stumped Grover.
That's a question that I hadn't thought of before. Thank you. I'll go and look.
You're welcome.
Okay, today, this organization that you're a part of today includes 1,200,000 Rotarians. 35,000 clubs in the world in over 165 countries, making Rotary not only the oldest, but by far the largest civic organization in the world.
So it finally spread out of the United States and Canada
Yep.
and started infecting everybody.
So with that in mind, going from 4 to 1,200,000, don't you think you want to know what went on at that very first meeting? Say yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to give you 5 things that I think Paul had on his mind at that first meeting that brought the Rotarians together. And number 1, he wanted to change his business associates into his personal friends.
What was his personal business?
He was a lawyer in downtown Chicago.
He was a lawyer.
And the
okay.
law office is still open today.
Well, I'd want
And it was
to.
mostly real estate.
If I was a lawyer, I'd want to change some of my friends too.
That's right, exactly. So it was all about fellowship. Paul grew up in a small town in Vermont, Wallingford, Vermont, and actually lived on a farm, he and his grandparents. He wanted to create a small town atmosphere in big city Chicago. And I know there's some small town guys out there in the group today. So what's so great about a small town?
Well, I think there's lots of things.
Everybody knows everybody, right?
And what's the worst thing about a small town?
Everybody
knows everybody.
Everybody knows what you're doing. Well, what you do that Paul came up with is you get together once a week in a hotel, probably somewhere, and get a group of people together, and you manage to have a really good time.
Centered around a meal.
Centered around a meal.
Which we still do to this day.
Early members of Chicago Rotary said Paul promoted rollicking good fun. Now, we don't use the word rollick much anymore.
And that is a crying shame.
Yeah, but I think we understand that it was a lot of fun to be there.
I think we should rollick more.
I think
Make sure you rollick a lot this week.
Yeah. Members were encouraged to check their pretense at the front door. When you came in, people were having fun, taking hot shots at you. It was like an oasis in the desert, one guy said.
Nice.
Most Rotary clubs schedule a lot of events where members get to know each other a lot better. We do, I know. Every time I go to a meeting, we've got something scheduled, breakfast buddies or lunch buddies or dinner buddies. Why do we do that? We want to be together.
We want to be together.
You guys have got an opportunity this week to be together, don't they?
Yes, yes.
Some of these people you meet today from another town, you may know well the rest of your life. Think about that.
And then you can send them to San Francisco and they can make their own Ryla camp.
That's right, exactly. So, anyway, there was a plaque on the back of Paul Harris's office. Ralph Waldo Emerson, it said, "He who has 1,000 friends has not a friend to spare."
Oh.
And that was Paul's attitude. He was a long lunch guy. He liked to go out for 2 hours, and he and his friends and have a good time together. So the old personality thing was number 1 on the list of that first meeting. Let's get together and get to know each other a little better.
Well, we have a lot of personality in our club.
And you all today have got a chance to know each other a lot better, don't you? Idea number 2 Paul fostered at the first meeting was to create an organization that promoted the concept of high ethical standards in business.
Is that where the 4-way test came from?
That's where the 4-way test came from.
Look on your water bottles. The 4-way test is on your water bottles, and we live by it to this day.
The man who wrote the 4-way test, his name was Herbert J. Taylor, and he joined Rotary in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. We got a Pauls Valley member here today?
I think we might have a couple.
I probably have a couple. The man who wrote the 4-way test joined Rotary in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma. He later moved to Chicago, and while in Chicago, the banks called him in and said, "We've got a business over here that's failing. If you can take it over and make it work, we'll turn it over to you." And bankers still do that today. Find somebody that's smart and the business is failing, see if they can't get them together. So they did, and Paul wrote the 4-way test, and it's written on everything you look at here. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? The story goes on to say that the 4-way test saved that company from bankruptcy. It's all about doing things for the right reasons, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think you can apply that to every single conflict you have in your life. Anytime you have to make a decision, if you run it through the 4-way test, you're going to know exactly what to do.
Yeah, we used to, I owned a business in Norman where we had OU stuff that we sold on game day. And one year we started in March, went to a trade show, and the guy wrote the order for all the merchandise that we were going to want for the season. and he didn't ship it before the first game.
Oh, no.
Boy, I looked at that four-way test, didn't I? What do you do in a situation like that? Do you ask for a little bit of extra credit? Do you send it all back? So there are times in your life when you can take that four-way test and say, what do I do now? And that was an experience that we had at one time. A lot of clubs out there have Rotary four-way test speech contests among their high school students. You may be asked to be a member of one of those groups. Rotary is by invitation only. New members are screened concerning their reputation before they're allowed to join Rotary. The principle of ethics is very important to our founder, Paul Harris. He himself had been the victim of some poor business problems early in his life, and he wanted to create an organization that stood for fair play. This principle is near and dear to most Rotarians, isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah, and the four founders talked about it at the very first meeting.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It sounds like the founding fathers, kind
Right.
of this wisdom that's been passed along for 116 years
That's
now.
right. Idea number 3, third principle Paul brought to the table at the first meeting, was that of a balanced membership. Take a look at our symbol, and you can see it. It's a wheel representing balance. It's really, I kind of fooled you a little bit. It's not a wheel at all. In 1920, it was changed to a gear. What's the difference between a gear and a wheel?
Well, I'm not really a mechanic, but I think that a gear has those little funky goober things on them called cogs.
Cogs. You know what you and I are as members of Rotary? We're cogs in a gear.
Cogs in the gear.
That's right. We make it work better because all of us are there supposedly working together. It's not about a bunch of school teachers getting together and talk about school teacher business or salesmen talking salesman talk. We want Rotary to be about joining up and learning about what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. We had a member of our club at one time who was general manager of one of the major car people in Norman, Oklahoma. And I remember I had breakfast with him one morning, and I said, Bobby, how's the car business? And he said, well, Grover, car sales are down a little bit nationally, but our dealership was awarded the award as, with a little trip to a Rotary club, I got an update on the car business.
Doesn't take much.
Doesn't
you
take
ask
much.
one question and be careful what you get back.
Well, okay. He didn't want Rotary to be about shop talk. He wanted it to be about an organization that was founded on the principle of proper motives, but also one that we look around and try to balance our community. If we're going to be in Norman, Oklahoma, we want somebody from OU, don't we?
It would make sense.
We want to balance it out. We've got a big hospital there. We need somebody from the hospital. So we're constantly looking for membership areas where we don't have somebody as part of our membership.
In fact, didn't they used to limit membership to certain numbers of people?
They did. And there was 2 banks in one town out in central Oklahoma. I can't remember the town now, where one guy controlled the Rotary position for 50 years. The other guy couldn't get in.
Because he had to wait till the other guy retired
That's
and died
right,
to be the next banker in line.
So
we've relaxed that a little bit.
We've relaxed that a little bit, but at the same time, we need to be careful that we're bringing in somebody who can add something to the club and it doesn't really interfere with any other members.
We even have somebody who's in the animal control and animal hospice industry in our club. So we are very well-rounded.
Yeah,
and we have plumbers.
That's right, exactly. 4th principle I had in mind at that first meeting was service to the community. Rotary clubs are always looking for ways to make their community a little bit better place to live. That's part of what we do. Paul, in addition to Rotary, was a big supporter of the Boy Scouts of America, and he won every award the Scouts ever gave out because he liked to be around youth. And right now, youth is one of the prime areas of concern, attention by Rotary clubs. We'll take a look at what's going on right here.
Exactly.
So it's all about dealing with youth. It's a district-wide program here to help young people develop their leadership skills. Chicago's first great project was a plumbing project, and that's something Bob always takes pride in.
I bet he does. He was probably around to work on it.
No. He didn't come along till 2 years later.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to exaggerate his age. Silly me.
There were no public restrooms in the subways of Chicago. Now think about
Gross.
it from a woman's standpoint. If you were working in downtown Chicago and you were waiting on the subway to go home and the subway was late and it's running to 30 minutes, you might need to use the restroom, and the only place to go to the restroom was to go into a bar. That's probably not a good idea.
Was that frowned upon back then?
I think it was frowned upon.
Okay.
So Chicago Rotary found something in their community that needed to be done, and they did it. And Rotary clubs all over Oklahoma are doing the same thing, finding areas where they can be of service. Now, we are very much a part of an organization in Norman called Bridges. It's a place where high schools, juniors, and seniors can live that have been thrown out of their home for no really good reason at all. And they're allowed to live in that house that we help support. And we have had coming out of that Bridges program of people that would not have been able to go to school if it hadn't been for us. 17 people now have gone to college.
That is
out of Bridges.
astounding. Grover, my producer is saying something. You keep talking. I'm just going to go address this really quickly. Carry on.
Where is she going? Okay, idea number 5. Rotary, the fifth and final thing Rotary had in mind at that first meeting was a desire to find members who would demonstrate a high level of commitment to the club. It's been said it's hard to find a semi-committed Rotarian. Look around the room at all the Rotarians that are here today. All of them heavily committed to Rotary. We have a motto in our club that poor attendance is not a problem, it's a symptom of a problem. We got a member out there that something's happened in their life, and we need to know what that is. If they need to take a little time off, we need to be very sympathetic with that. So we want to know what our members are doing and make sure.
We even have a board position devoted to keeping up with members. There's the member chair, but then there's also the Nexus chair to help make sure, check in on people we haven't seen in a while. So once you join Rotary, we want you to stay.
Right.
And it's fun. It's easy to stay.
70% of the members of our club never miss a meeting they don't make up. And I want to remind you, it's not about attendance, it's about commitment. We want committed members. You guys this week need to commit yourself to Bob's program because it's going to be an excellent opportunity to you to share your ideas and develop your skills.
That's right. And many, many of the people who will be coming to work with you this week, and Bob and Ellen and Reagan and some of the other counselors are Rotary members, and this is counting towards their attendance, but they do it out of their heart.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. One other thing I want to talk about, we talked about the 5 things that Paul saw at that first meeting that needed to be done. One big thing that he didn't really understand at the time is how big Rotary was going to become. He didn't know it was becoming a worldwide organization. It started with the English. Good Rotarians, right? Right after World War I, the English stepped in and helped the Belgian refugees. Probably giving them money, clothing, whatever it took. That country was torn apart during World War I. Shortly after that, the Japanese had an earthquake, and Rotary was there very earlier in that earthquake, getting things back under control. So Rotary's been involved in worldwide situations ever since. Somebody said to me one time, how can Rotary really get anything done? They don't have any political power. Well,
that's probably why we get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. A good story is that I always think of is the situation between Chile and Argentina in South America. If you think about the map of South America, think how long the border is between those two countries.
It's
1,000 miles probably. Up and down the south side, the west side of the country, but they couldn't get along for years because they didn't know where the boundary. They fought and they had battles and things. You know what they finally did? They got the Rotarians from the two countries together. They set them at a table and put the 4-way steps in the middle, and they figured it out.
I love that story.
Yeah, I haven't done any, and they haven't had any trouble since.
So think about that when you're in line for the meals.
That's right. Probably the greatest accomplishment a Rotary is making is we're on the brink of wiping polio off the face of the earth.
Okay, now slow down just a second, Grover. We're on the brink of wiping polio off the face of the earth. Like smallpox.
Smallpox was number
Gone.
1. Smallpox was the #1 disease that we've taken off the market. #2 is going to be Rotary, and we're down now to, I think, Afghanistan and Pakistan. And guess why? Because the evil people over there are telling them that the Americans are trying to poison their kids. We're not over there to poison anybody. We're over there to keep them from getting that dreaded disease.
We are.
These kids are too young to remember when people got polio.
So am I.
I grew up in an era where I had a good friend that actually ended up in a polio ward where he was in an iron lung.
Really?
To help him breathe, you know.
Yes.
He actually got out of it, and he's still living today, but it was a horrible, horrible disease.
And it paralyzed or severely disabled a lot of kids at the time, didn't
Yeah,
it?
well, Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of our presidents, was a sufferer of polio.
He was in a wheelchair.
He was in a wheelchair, and a lot of Americans didn't know that because they always kept the camera up there with him sitting down, so we didn't really realize that. I didn't know the governor of Texas was in a wheelchair. Did you see that?
I did, but it had been a while.
I didn't know that, and all of a sudden that came in. So anyway, brief history of Rotary that I'm giving you here. It's a worldwide organization founded on the principle of building close friendships between its members. That's #1. #2, it champions the concept of high ethical standards in business. #3, it seeks at all times to have a balanced membership, presenting a wide range of professions. Think about that Rotary gear. 4, it seeks to make its community a better place to live. Think about service. And #5, it's an organization which recruits members who will have a high commitment level to the club. It's just who we are.
It sounds pretty great. So you're telling me we want to make friends,
Right.
do business morally, ethically, and justly, have a nice, diverse membership among that group of friends, make our communities a better place to be, and have committed members.
Right.
Kind of sounds like utopia.
Good job.
Thanks.
Did you get those 5 items written down? I'm sure you did. I want to close today with a little story that I love to tell about Rotary, and it's about a man that many people knew named Albert Schweitzer. Considered one of the greatest human beings that ever lived, he was brilliant in a variety of different activities: philosopher, musician, doctor, clergyman, and writer. But later on in life, actually, he moved back from Africa and took up residence in Paris, France. And while he was there with a little time on his hand, he decided he wanted to create an organization that existed for no other reason than to make it a better world. Politics aside, you know what? He never did start that club. You know why?
It sounds like one already existed.
You hit it on the head. You know what he did, Albert Schweitzer? He joined Rotary, and he spent the rest of his life as a dedicated member of the Paris Rotary Club. And I've often said, Kay, if it's good enough for Albert Schweitzer, it's good enough for me. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be there. Great questions. You got anything in final?
Thank you so much. Well, I stumped you with what number was Rotary, but we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Grover, thank you so much for your time. It's really been a pleasure. It's nice to sit down and talk to someone who really knows so much about Rotary and carries that flame and passion in his heart. It shines through.
Okay. Glad to do it.
Thank you.
You guys have a great week.
Have a great week.
Are we good or what?
Oh.